Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see the hour continues. I do want to speak to something that's very important to understand, and I wanted to lay this out for our members to consider as we have this debate. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe in inalienable rights, and I believe that if I took a poll of folks in the chamber, that many members in this chamber believe in them as well. I believe in the right of free speech and free assembly. I believe in the right of freedom of the press. I believe in the right of religious liberty. I believe the fact that we come into this Capitol, we don't have to take a cross off our neck, or if you're a woman wearing a hijab, you don't have to take that off your head. You can practice your religious liberties in a government building and really anywhere you go. I believe in the equal protection of the laws. I believe that there should be no discrimination or different treatment based on race, creed, age, dependency, religion. And I believe in the right of self-protection. Our founders, as you heard earlier, put into our Constitution the protection of our right to self-protection because they knew there'd be a need to protect it. When our Constitution was originally passed, there was no Bill of Rights. And they listed things, the right to be secure in your person and effects against unreasonable government seizures. Because our founders knew someday there would be an attack and there would be an infringement on those basic rights. If I ask you, friends, if on walking onto a college campus, should people be asked to drink in segregated drinking fountains? Well, of course not. Of course they shouldn't. If we walked into a place of business, should there be segregated restrooms? Of course not. Because we recognize basic civil rights apply equally to all. When we walk into a government building, should you have to take a cross off your neck, or should you be required to stop holding your faith? Well, of course not. Because we believe in those basic civil rights are part of who we are. Why then do we believe if these civil rights need to be protected everywhere, why is there going to be debate later in this discussion today that suggests the right to protect yourself is something less than a basic civil right? Friends, you're going to hear a lot of arguments today. And I want you to ask yourself the question, those who would undermine the right to protect yourself wherever you go, do they really believe that the right to protect yourself is just as much of a basic civil right as the right to equal protection, or the right to free speech, or the right to be secure in your persons and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures? Friends, I would suggest to you today, if you listen to some of the debate we're going to hear later, people don't really deeply believe that the right to protect yourself is as important as other basic civil rights that we all hold dear. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, I'll share with you a quick story that could happen in any of our communities, could happen in any of our neighborhoods. I want you to imagine a young mom. She's walking down a street of Atlanta, pushing a baby carriage with her young child. And I want you to imagine the horrible circumstance which could tragically happen again in any of our communities. Imagine a van pulls up and a big athletic man jumps out and snatches the young woman's child and is going to make off and kidnap the child. If I took a show of hands in this room, how many people believe that young mom ought to be able to use some force beyond her hands to try to stop this predator from taking her child? Now, Mr. Speaker, we can't take a show of hands in here because that's not how we do things in the House of Representatives, but I want you to think about that yourself. Now, we recognize a young mom. My mom was about 5 feet tall and never weighed more than about 100 pounds. If my mom had faced a big athletic man making off with one of her kids, there's nothing she could do about it but for an equalizer to try to protect herself. Now, if we recognize she has a right walking down the street on a sidewalk in the city of Atlanta, why is it when she walks through the campus of Georgia Tech, why is it that she relinquishes that basic civil right to protect herself and her family? Why is it if she walks into a government building, she ought to relinquish that basic civil right to protect herself and her family? Why is it if she's walking through a park area on a church property, why does she relinquish the basic civil right to protect herself and her family? The fact is that she shouldn't. The fact is those rights follow us everywhere we go. And just like we don't relinquish our civil rights to drink from the same drinking fountain, or to use the same restrooms, or to practice our religious liberty, we don't check our basic inalienable rights at the door of any facility that we enter. Ladies and gentlemen, HB 875 seeks to make a step towards addressing the inequities that exist in Georgia law that take people's basic inalienable right to protect themselves away in certain places. Friends, listen carefully to some of the arguments you're going to hear today and ask yourself the question, do people really believe the right to protect yourself is an inalienable right? Or do they suggest rights can be applied selectively based on the wills of elected bodies? Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to speak to our body today, and I, with great respect, yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 875 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 875. The ayes are 119, the nays are 56. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed.